Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Every Now and Then. My name is Brian Smith, and today we are going to continue our reflection back on the 20th anniversary of the passing of our mother, Ellen Smith, maiden name Butterman, and it's been 20 years. It's something that a little hard to fathom, really, that it's been 20 years. January 20th, 2005. Remember that day and the day before pretty well. And I can say with all earnest and honesty that it was the greatest amount of grief I have ever went through in my life. So I'll talk about that a little bit. I also want to talk about some memories, even some funny memories of our mother. The grief that I went through, I had had some grief before, but the passing of my mother, I really can't speak for my other brothers. I hope they will at least listen in and maybe share some of their thoughts. But I had spoken to her the night before she passed, January 19th. I think Patty was also on the phone with her. We had a couple phones. Back then it was landlines. And it was the roller coaster call. I'd give anything now to have that call on recording. Sometimes I did record things, but you never know when it's going to be the last time that you do something or see something. And she was in fairly good spirits. I remember distinctly that she was worried about Kyle, and I can't remember why. It was coming up on his anniversary, his wedding anniversary. I do remember that, and she was concerned about him. He would have been, at that time, 2005, so he would have been not quite 33, 34, and was, as I recall, maybe having some issues job-wise, and he wasn't living at home. He was her youngest and so forth. But we talked about some things. She had seemed like she was in pretty good health, talking on the phone. This was in middle of January. A month and a half earlier, she was in the hospital, and it was pretty severe. And we went to see her. And then in December of 2004, we had a really horrible start to winter in early December and early January of 2005, where we couldn't see her. We couldn't see them for Christmas, and that was a tradition that we had. We did go see them earlier in December for Christmas, and we stayed the whole day. And I remember we finally said we're going to have to get going because they lived in Mansfield, and we lived at that time in Marion, Ohio. So it was a good hour drive on clear roads. And they didn't want us to leave. Mom did not want us to go. We'd been there for hours. She always made us feel so welcome. She's the only person, really, when I go to their home, Um, she offered me a beverage, a warm beverage, and fed me. I always thought that was so great. That's just something you don't see from later generations. But there was times we would go and we wouldn't even really do anything. We'd stay at the house and we'd read magazines. That was Dad's idea. Let's just sit here and relax and read magazines and talk, and don't even need the TV on. And I remember us doing things like that. But I do distinctly remember going down for Christmas, and they did not want us to leave. We said, well, we got to go. And I felt so strange leaving, like I wish I didn't have to go. I couldn't quite put my finger on what was going on. And we got in our car, and as we looked at the door, Mom was at the door waving, and she was just crying, uh, pretty, pretty good, profusely, tears going down her face. And if I didn't know better, I'd say it's like she knew it was the last time. I think she knew she was very sick. She just got out of the hospital, and I'd never dreamed ever that anything would ever happen to her. She was the one who would always be strong enough to come back. She was born in 1936, so 2005 would have been 69 in May, but this is January, so she's still really 68 years old. I'm a year away from that as of this talking to you. And then on the morning of January 20th, very snowy, and I was going out to my car. We lived on Bellefontaine Avenue in Marion. And I was starting my car, or whatever I had, truck, I forget what I had at that time. And Marcus comes running out, and he said, Dad, Jeff was on the phone. He left a message. And he wants you to call him right away. And I thought, well, I even said to Mark, I said, well, he's probably stuck somewhere. The snow's been so bad that he's stuck. Because earlier in the month, we had tried to get to Mom and Dad's for Christmas and could not get out of the county. I got stuck and had to have people pull me out. It was awful. Fate was against us. So he's on the phone leaving a message. So I called him right back, and I even said, Jeff, you need me to come pick you up? Are you stuck somewhere? He said, Brian, Mom died. And that's all I remember. And then I remember, as I recall it, I could be wrong, but I feel like this is what I said. I just said, no, 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 no. It was the absolute last thing I was expecting him to say. It can't be. And you really don't realize how much people mean to you, a person means to you, until the finality of it. I think that's what makes death so shocking to your system. Not that I didn't love my dad and all other family members, but she was at the center of it as far as a human being was concerned. She's the one basically did most of the raising and feeding and clothing and cooking and shaping us so well, so much, and disciplining us. And looking back, I felt like she was the one fighting for us and everything, fighting with us and fighting for us. And I just kept saying that. I just, in denial. I always hear about people being in denial, and thought, well, that'll never happen to me. But I was completely in denial. I don't know what he said after that snapped me out of it. And I don't remember hanging up the phone with him. I do remember calling Patty and saying I need to speak to Patty right away. She had went to work, of course. She never missed. And I said, Patty, Mom died. She didn't say anything. I thought I heard noise in the background, and apparently she had dropped a tray on the floor, just in shock. And then I had to work that day as well at Ohio Health, and I had to call, and of course they put you on hold. Supervisor came on. I must have had to work second shift or whatever it was. And I said, I won't be in today. My mother passed away. And the supervisor, I don't remember who it was, she just said, like that, and just hung up. No, I'm sorry. No, nothing. She may have been upset because of what I said for my sake, but it came across, well, now you've inconvenienced me. I got to find a replacement for you. So that's the immediate memories I had. And then Patty got home, and Marcus at this time would have been not quite 15, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Going to Pleasant High School. He had a couple years to go. I don't remember the drive to Mansfield at all. I know it was snowy, and it was probably not the most pleasant ride, but the weather had gotten better. There was a lot of snow on the ground, but we got there, and I absolutely don't remember too much after that. I couldn't tell you who was there. Dad was there, and he was doing his job, really. It's hard to describe. He was like he was the one who was kind of showcasing Mom in the house and where everything was. So she was still in the house when we got there. I don't know if he arranged that. As I recall, Kyle was there. I really can't remember. It's funny how you're in shock. So we went up to her little room, and she was on this little bed on the upstairs, and she wasn't sleeping at the head of the bed. She slept at the foot of the bed. I don't know why she did that. I occasionally do that. But she did it, and she just looked so small in that bed. And I reached down. She looked like she was sleeping, but she was ice cold and just peaceful. She passed away alone, which I don't feel like any human being should ever have to go through that, whether you're an animal or whatever, or a human being. Someone should have been there with her. And I won't go into detail. I have audio I'll play of Dad. He let her sleep. He said he had something told him, he said, to go in, but he didn't, and he ran some errands and came back, and she was gone. Then I remember the house filling up, and I was a little bit upset because there was some people didn't seem to be very upset. Immediate family members all were, but people were in the kitchen cooking and things like that. And we just kind of sat around and reminisced about Mom. And later we all drove down to Mansfield again, and Dad had pictures he wanted us to look at and take, and I got a few. I didn't get all the things I wanted. Got a couple things, and that was that. So I want to turn it around here a little bit and talk about some stories I have of Mom. These are in no particular order, and I don't know if anybody's heard these before. But Mom and Dad watched Marcus quite a bit as a baby and as a toddler. Not so much as a baby, but as a toddler, 2-3 years old. And they seem to really enjoy it. I know there's been talk that Mom didn't like babysitting the kids. We always paid her, always. I never had her do it for free. But I remember one time there was a story. I don't know where Patty and I were, probably working. Mom was fuming, and it was in the summertime, and her and Marcus, and my dad went out, and Mom was craving some ice cream cone in Mansfield. So Dad, I don't know if they got it. I think they got it and took it home. I can't remember, or they had ice. They were going to make ice cream cones. Dad's in the kitchen, Mom's in the living room in her chair, and Marcus was about 3 years old, not much older than that. And Dad made the ice cream cone just the way she wanted it. It was only enough for everybody to have one ice cream cone. So Dad makes the ice cream cone, gives it to Marcus, and says, Marcus, take this to your grandma. And he drops it, of course. Of course he did. He's 3 years old. He's going to drop it. And I can't remember exactly whether how they only had enough for one, but he dropped it. There was no other ice cream there. So Dad got his ice cream. Marcus got his. And my mom got no ice cream. And obviously I wasn't there when it happened, but I'm sure he was lambasted for that one. Threw the whole thing away. Giving an ice cream cone or anything really to a 3-year-old and say, take this to grandma. Another episode surrounding food is as a younger guy, I loved pecan pie. The holidays were coming up. And I was at the age where I was just tired of processed food and so forth. So I ordered a box of pecans, large box of pecans. I don't know how many pounds it would have been, but it was a box full of pecans, and 10 pounds, maybe 15 pounds. It's hard to say. And I didn't order it until I asked my mom. I said, Mom, if I buy a box of pecans, can you make me some authentic pecan pie? Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I would love to do that for you. So got it early, and the mistake I made, I guess, was giving it to her before the holidays started and everything. It was in her possession. And every time I would call her or go over, Mom, you got those pecan pie? I'm really wanting that pecan. That was, from Georgia pecan. And I'm still working on it. I'll let you know. Da, 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 da. And she kept putting it off and off and off. And then one day we did go over. She said she finally got my pecan pie done. And I ate. I thought, what? Where's the pecans? It doesn't really taste like pecans. And for some reason, she thought she could fool me by making a mock pecan pie. But it wasn't close to the pecan. I said, what happened to the pecans that was in it? Here she had methodically eaten the entire box, 10, 15-pound box of pecans that I had shipped from Georgia. And it ended up being, a lot of laughing, a running joke. I should have known better. Another item about Mom, she really disciplined us pretty hard, especially around her sisters. She was the youngest. She was the baby of the family. Then there was June. Then there was Ruth, I think was the oldest. There was 3. They were pretty close, really, but they were competitive, not in a sports way, but they were competitive about their kids. And Mom didn't think that Aunt June, her sister June, raised her kids right, did not care for her kids. And she so did not want us to be like Larry and Billy, June's kids. And that's all she talked about. And I do remember distinctly in the 60s, we were just little toddlers and kids. My mom taking us to someone's house, and it was her Aunt Annie, I think. That was her name, She was her Aunt Annie. And telling us at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, we're going to go, and you 4 had better sit there and not embarrass me, and make sure you sit on this couch, and you had better mind. And she had us so dressed up, hair combed. This was the mid-60s or whatever. So we were dressed different than they are now, but we had on our shirts like we were going to church. Hair was combed perfectly, shoes, socks, uh, and it was slacks. It was not blue jeans or anything like that. It was trousers. And I remember sitting on that sofa, all four of us. We didn't move. We didn't ask for anything. And I remember her saying, Aunt Annie saying, well, you have got the best behaved kids. That was so incredibly important to her, was that. Another item that comes to mind with Mom is our mother had beautiful skin. She really didn't have any lines or cracks in her face, and I've talked about that with the brothers and so forth, and Patty and I have talked about that. Mom did a lot of cooking, a lot, where she had steam kettles and she had teapots and all that steam, but she cooked with Crisco. Now it's almost so expensive you can't even buy it. But she used it for 20, 30, 40 years. She didn't like to use bacon fat or anything like that. It was pure Crisco in those huge containers. It was pure white. And she would cook with that over that stove year after year after year. And that was almost like a beauty secret that she had. She didn't drink a lot of water to help hydrate her skin, but she loved cooking with Crisco oil. And I remember so many times going in that kitchen. She wasn't tall. She was 5 foot tall. Standing over that stove and all that steam and all that Crisco and that butter, just in the air and moving around. And she's getting a beauty treatment without even knowing it for hours. She also used something called Noxzema, and they still make Noxzema. I buy it for Patty all year. I know you were thinking I wear it. I buy it for Patty. She discovered it just talking to my mother, and she had never heard of it before. I guess most women of her generation didn't use Noxzema. Patty swears by it, uses it every day, and they still make it. And I've tried it before. It's got a tingling feel to it. Maybe I should start wearing it. I don't know, but between the Noxzema and the Crisco and the steam over the stove every day, she just had a beautiful complexion. But Mom did some things in the kitchen that were just amazing. She could take lunch meat even and take old things that has been leftovers for a while, and I remember her taking canned salmon and making something great from it. The other thing she did, she would always make homemade pancakes. She made them homemade. And she didn't like syrup, uh, pancake syrup. She would buy Karo syrup. And we ate pancakes with Karo syrup, which was really, really good, which mostly is for cooking. And that, again, it's so expensive. You can't use it for syrup, for pancakes. It's for cooking. But that's what we had. She made every holiday just incredible. Dad would buy the biggest turkey they could find, 25 pounds every single time. And her Thanksgiving and Christmas meals were out of this world. And that was one of the things I was thinking about when my mother passed away. That was the end of the great holiday baking and cooking. For my 40th birthday, remember she made me Hush Puppies homemade fish. It was like the best I ever had. I only get it now when I go to Long John Silver's or Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips, or when I go to Put-in-Bay. But no one could match my mother's cooking and her baking, which I really, really miss. So those are some of the memories that I have of her, some of her gifts. She loved putting things on the Columbus Dispatch recipe page, which I don't even know if they do that anymore. I remember one time giving her 10, 15 scrapbooks to put pictures in. And when I went to see her later, she had filled up every single one of those scrapbooks with her recipes. I was amazed how she did that. Years ago, I bought a really nice typewriter, the old-fashioned kind, you say, but it was modern. And then we went into the internet age, and I didn't need a typewriter anymore. So I gave her this typewriter. I thought, I don't even know if she'll want it. I paid like $200 for it, and it was still a pretty good order. I didn't need it because with the keyboards and everything, it was on the internet. She took that typewriter and she wore it out, completely wore it out, typing. And that was a benefit to her, which I didn't know was a blessing for her, because she was a letter writer. No one could write letters, whether it was complaint letters or whatever it was, like our mother was. She, at the end of her life, I would go see her, and she would be trying to fix her internet, her computer, and I'd say, Mom, I just fixed it for you last time I was here. Oh, now, Bobby, now don't get mad at Mom. She got so perfect at the end, so perfect, and then I guess God was ready to take her. She got perfect, and then she was gone. And not a day goes by that I don't think about her, think of her, and hoping that she's okay. One other thing I'm going to say in conclusion is, when she was still alive, she did talk about her funeral a lot and about death, and we always thought that was kind of a downer. But she talked about pennies from heaven. And I don't know how many of you listening are going to buy into what I say, but it's absolutely 100% the truth. She would talk about pennies from heaven and how she wondered if you could leave a penny, that it would be a sign that she was thinking of us or me. Her and I talked about that on several occasions. Well, this is the God's honest truth. Patty and I can't walk or go anywhere at least once a week. It's been going on for years and years and years, where we'll be walking on a sidewalk or walking in our house in an area where there was no chance of any money being there, or walking on a path and we change paths, and right in front of us is a penny. It's happened so many times that I've lost track. We've kept every single penny. We keep it on the table. At the end of the year, we take them to the bank along with our change. But just this past year, 2024, we had those on a table, just collecting there, and there must have been at least 24, 25 pennies. And it's unbelievable how they're right there where no one saw it, and it's always one penny. It's, people drop pennies or nickels and dimes. Nope, it's always a single penny, never with any other change or anything else. I mean, I wish I could find money, but it started happening, and I started to tell Patty 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, probably even, Patty, I don't get this. Here's another penny. Go to another place, or look, there's a penny here. Where did that come? On the bathroom floor. A few months ago, I was opening up something, and there was a penny inside of an envelope. I thought, how did it get in the envelope? It's just, no, I don't know. I'm so confused about it. I thought, well, do people who are deceased, can they manipulate a penny there, or is it from God? Is it celestial? And I've done some research, and there's some beliefs that the penny is from an angel telling the recipient that, your mother's okay. It's from heaven, but your mom's okay. And she's sending out this signal. So I don't know quite what to make of it. In my mind, it's a penny from heaven. And then later we started getting some heads, some tails. So we always say now, if it's heads, it's my mother. If it's tails, it's my dad. But it's so incredibly consistent that it hasn't been 1 or 2 times in 20 years. It's been 100 times in those 20 years, at least, that we find one penny all over the place, inside things that we're opening up, on the carpeting, on bathroom floors, on sidewalks, in a store, on top of a table where I'm sitting at or standing at. It has to be from heaven, from an angel or my mother, able in the spirit to do that. So that's my story about pennies from heaven. That I think is a good time to conclude. We're thinking about our mother today, Ellen Leora Butterman Smith. Miss her. Haven't stopped thinking about her from the day that she passed. We miss her terribly. Anything I've done in life, succeed-wise, she was a major reason for that. So, Mother, we love you. We miss you. And as we think about January 20th, 2005, we're so glad you were our mother. We wouldn't have wanted anybody else. No one else could take your place. No one can take your place now. And may you rest in peace. Thank you for listening.